wasn't even. I was gonna go the whole episode without bringing up Jared
I
Goff.
don't believe I
had
that for a
no
second.
intention of bringing this up about him, but I mean, here he is. I mean, I guess we could talk about. He's 21 of 28.
We don't actually need to talk about it.
Though for an amazing 187 yards.
Listen, I've acknowledged nobody's starting him. All right. And welcome to another episode of DB2. Sitting here about just finished off the third quarter in the Monday Night Football game. David Brem here with Daniel Buller as always. How's it going, Buller?
It's going well. I am like panic mode right now. I think I'm gonna lose my game. Rodgers going off, having himself a day. I had DeAndre Swift, so I'm a little down right now. But hopefully, by the time the game's over, I pull it out. It could be really close. But overall, though, the week was good. Football, we had some amazing games, and Lamar Jackson, man, that Sunday night game. The night games, the prime
times have
been
fantastic,
so good. So that's awesome. But without wasting too much time, don't forget to like the video, subscribe. That really does help us out. Comment down below. All that stuff really does help the channel. So thank you so much in advance. Now, let's talk about the thing that we're going to talk about to start off is we have actually a lot of this is going to be in one game. And we had the Minnesota Vikings versus the Arizona Cardinals. Man, the Minnesota Vikings kicking woes continue. It's just sickening. So Cardinals do escape with a win. But we want to talk about a couple things. I want to lead, though. I think it was in the last episode. We talked about KJ Osborne. He had a great day. So that was good to see. On 6 targets. He did a lot with them. So that was good. Before I send it back to you, Tyler Conklin. So I want to talk about tight ends because tight ends, obviously, I always like to talk about these. And Tyler Conklin. So he is tight end for the Minnesota Vikings. 2 catches for 15 yards and 4 targets. Now, I just, for me personally, like he is the tight end there in Minnesota. But and we did talk about Osborne as well. It seems like there's just so many mouths to feed in Minnesota. You have Jefferson, you got Thielen, you got obviously Cook. He's going to get his. And then KJ Osborne is their wide receiver 3. So, like, is there enough room for someone like Tyler Conklin to have any fantasy value besides a very, very tight, just a long shot tight end 2, hoping to get a touchdown? Maybe the game plan will lead to having some decent games, but I just feel like it's more of a long shot tight end, without much upside.
Yeah, that's my issue. Is just the amount of people searching for touches in that team. I kind of like Conklin's talent. Watching him, he looked pretty good. The problem is, like, yeah, he had a pretch decent game, but that was still 4 catch for when he's 100% touchdown dependent. Like, if he doesn't score you a touchdown, I don't see him ever getting you 100 yards receiving this season. Like, I just don't see that happening unless he catches a long one. And
how many tight ends are getting 100 yards? I mean, we are.
I know, but here's the thing: you kind of have to that has to be an option, or else you're just counting on touchdowns, and you never want to be in a situation where if you don't get a touchdown, you're not getting anything. Like, I feel like with him, if you don't get a touchdown, you're not getting anything. I guess if you're in a full PPR, like, he had like an 8-point day, so that's not terrible. But I don't know.
This week he only had 3.5. He had 2 for 15.
Oh, sorry. So, I was looking at week 1. That's my bad.
But that's good because I wasn't sure what he had in week 1. So he didn't do much in week 1 either.
No, he had 4 catches, 41 yards. So he did a decent amount. And your favorite stat, he is it looks like on the field somewhere between 70 and 80 between the 2 weeks percent of the time. I don't see a situation where I'm comfortable putting him in my lineup, even on a bye week. I just don't see it.
Yeah. Again, we'll see how this plays out, but he is the tight end of choice. 49 snaps at tight end, which is majority. I mean, Justin Jefferson had 53, so like he wasn't far off of that. KJ Osborne, I will say, of the total of 61, by the way. KJ Osborne has cemented himself as wide receiver 3. If we didn't already, we thought it last week. He's like, it's not DD Westbrook, but it is indeed. He had 36 snaps of the 61. DD only had 2. So he is wide receiver 3. If anything happens with Jefferson or Thielen, you really like his value going
I think
up.
if that were
But
to happen, I think he's gonna be a stud because I mean, he had almost 100 yards this week. Did a lot with his 5 catches,
yeah, so
and
he looks like he is grasping the offense. Looks like he's going to be have some decent weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if this is best fantasy game all year. I mean, honestly,
could
but
be, yeah.
because of all the Dalvin Cook didn't have any touchdowns, you expect more that not to continue. He obviously still had a good day. He's very good at football. But and Thielen, he's great. Justin Jefferson, great. So there's just a lot of talent there in Minnesota on that offense. Just sickening though. I mean, I'm rooting for Arizona. I'm a Texas fan, so they got some Texans over there. But I mean, I'm just sick for the team because they put themselves in a position to win and to lose with something like that. But now on the other side, I think the Cardinals. It's interesting because the Cardinals have the exact same problem. From a tight end perspective, they have so much talent on that offense and a lot of talent on defense too. But they have so much talent on offense that it's hard to imagine a scenario where Maxx Williams does more than what he did in this game. He had 7 targets, which is great. DeAndre Hopkins only had 4. So he didn't really get targeted at all. He ran a lot of routes. I think I have the number here. He had 46 receiving snaps, and he only had 4 targets. DeAndre Hopkins. That is not expected to continue. AJ Green had more targets. Christian Kirk had the same number of targets. So Maxx Williams with 7. Rondale Moore had 8 targets on only 24 snaps. So I expect all of this to kind of change after this week. I do think Rondale Moore, obviously, as a rookie, looked great, electric, but I mean, you're not expecting him to get thrown at that much when he's on the field. And Maxx Williams as well. 7 targets on 25 receiving snaps. It just won't happen probably again. With that said, I still think this offense is so electric. And there's so much. And Kyler's just going off right now. I think with his ownership percentage, I don't have the exact number. I'll pull it up here in a second. I think that he's still probably a really nice tight end to have. I mean, if you need a tight end, I mean, I still think having part of that offense, I feel better about Maxx Williams than I do with Conklin.
Yeah, and I'll let you look at that percentage. My thought with him is I love the idea of a tight end in this offense. Like, that idea sounds awesome. And honestly, I think there's less. We've been talking about Minnesota a lot. There's less like mouths to feed. I don't think AJ Green is going to be in any way relevant long term. I know he had a touchdown this week, and I get that, but I mean, it's Hopkins and Kirk. It is. I like the upside of Max more than a lot of other kind of like very low owned tight ends, just because of that offense. And we got Kyler Murray kind of running all over the field, and occasionally he's just going to have to sling it to the first guy he sees who happens to be open, and sometimes that's going to be Williams. So he's another guy. It'd be tough for me to slice him into my lineup, but at the same time, the idea of a tight end in that offense really intrigues me.
Yeah, and Maxx Williams is virtually not owned. So and then
that doesn't surprise me.
Conklin as well is a pretty low percentage. But again, if I had to choose between the two, I take Maxx Williams. I like the offense more.
Unquestionably. That being said, this is another one of those where this might probably be his best.
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't score a touchdown, so that'll come.
Yeah, but still in a PPR, he had a 16.4 points. I think he's a very.
He had a great game.
I think they played the Jags in week 3. We'll see some more from that. A lot of mouths to feed in that offense. You're not expecting huge games from him, but I do think with Kyler playing lights out, I do think he has a decent. I don't want to say because he wasn't even on the radar. I do think if he's involved in the offense a decent amount, if we see it in a few weeks, the floor actually could be pretty solid. He could be could be a nice tight end to have. And I think if you're looking for
that's the thing is like week 1 he had 1 target and no catches. So it's 1 week. I don't want to get too crazy, but it's a guy. We do this a lot on this show. This is what we're trying to do for you. Keep an eye on him. It's just a guy that nobody in your league is probably thinking of. Keep an eye. He has a couple weeks like this. He might be worth. You probably don't want to wait until his 3rd good week because then he'll be gone. But he has another one like this. Maybe throw him on a bench spot.
Yeah, for sure. So I was really happy with that. Now, next, do you want to talk about Kenny Golladay, or do you? Who did you have next on here?
So we both kind of picked a receiver that is fairly, I don't want fairly low owned that I think has some talent. And mine is a slight homer pick. If you watched our first episode, I was wearing a TCU shirt, so there is some of that coming from. But the guy's got a lot of talent. Jalen Reagor, there in Philadelphia, should have had another tight end, or another touchdown. Kind of a stupid stepped out of bounds play, which obviously is not great. So his line this week is actually kind of terrible. It's 2 catches for 5 yards, but he should have had another long touchdown. The guy's got a ton of talent. They drafted him in the first round for a reason. He did not have a good rookie season. He was terrible, to be frank, in his rookie season. But honestly, like he's got the talent. He's got the opportunity. I don't love the Philadelphia offense, but I mean they're gonna throw the ball. They're gonna be down. They're gonna throw the ball. He's just a guy. He's got that big play potential. He's obviously got the talent. They liked him enough to pick him in the first round. And I've watched a lot of this guy play football, and he's got it. And if he could get it together, I think there is definitely some mental stuff there. You see it with the stepping out of bounds. You see it with kind of the bad rookie season, but I think he could be a guy who kind of sneaks into that top 20, 25 realm.
Yeah, so looking at his stat line, I think this is somebody like a buy low even. So he's decently owned, as opposed to like Kenny Galladay, who's pretty well owned in every league. But for this guy here, I mean, if he's not owned, I think he could be worth it. And also, he might get dropped. I mean, I'm looking at this. I don't know how people are feeling. If you don't watch the game, or I mean, Jalen Hurts had 12 completions. It's not there's not a whole lot of room to go when you only complete the ball 12 times. We're not going to talk about Jameis Winston, but I think he was kind of similar. I mean, you can't really have much value as a wide receiver if your quarterback has 12 completions in the game. Watkins had 2 for 117, had the 91-yard touchdown or 91-yard play. So I mean, that's why his numbers are 2 for 117. But like when you look at even Devonta Smith had 7 targets, only had 2 catches, 2 for 16. So there's really no fantasy relevance at all. Or they would just, I shouldn't say fantasy relevance, but there was, a lot of people probably played Smith, were disappointed. But when you only complete 12 passes, there's not a whole lot of there. And 91 of it went to Watkins, who is not even, on anybody's team. So, most of that, I mean, he had less than 100 yards to go around between any fantasy relevant players. And that's including the tight ends, which, both of them are somewhat owned. Well, one of them is for sure, and then Ertz maybe not so much. But they have a lot of, I shouldn't even say they have a lot of mouths to feed. But with only 100 yards, you don't need a lot of mouths to feed to not have a whole lot of relevance.
No. And there's gonna be a lot of people who play, and they obviously didn't pay. Nobody was watching really a lot of fantasy people weren't watching the San Francisco Philadelphia game like crazy close, so they don't know that line could have been significantly different had he just not stepped out of bounds. So if I hadn't been paying attention and I saw a guy had 2 weeks in a row where he didn't really do, I mean, he scored a touchdown week 1, but he had 2 targets for 5 yards, or 2 receptions for 5 yards, I could drop him. So there might be some in your league. Drop him. He's probably better than like whoever the last wide receiver on your bench is.
Yeah, he had 5 targets, which is second most target. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's still the second most on the team. When you only pass the ball 23 times total, Jalen Hurts obviously did a lot through it with his legs. Like he's obviously looks like he's going to be very fantasy relevant all year. I was wrong on him. We were kind of low on Jalen Hurts, but I mean, if he's running the ball this many times, that rush, he's got quite a high floor, and I expect him to do better than 12 for 23 on a given week. And just to hammer this home, Devonta Smith was on the field 49 snaps. Jalen was on the field 42 snaps. So it's like he's still Watkins 29. So it's like he's a little bit less than Smith, but he looks like wide receiver 2. So that's good to see. So even though you look at the stat line, you see that Watkins clearly outperformed him yardage wise. I don't think this. I think that's a misleading. Obviously, I don't think anybody thinks that you should own Watkins over him. But for me, I think that you probably. This is somebody that could definitely be dropped. He had 2 for 2 catches. But again, that's something.
Well, and the team, just from an NFL standpoint, the team's going to keep trying to get this guy to live up to his potential. Like they invested a lot in him, and It's just a matter of fact. First round picks get a little bit more leeway.
All right, a guy I want to talk about completely off the radar, not owned in any league, a deeper league maybe, but maybe at a very deep league. Is somebody on the Tennessee Titans, Derrick Henry. No, okay, he's good, right? He's good, but not AJ Brown, not Julio Jones. I want to talk about the third wide receiver, Chester Rodgers. Now, he really only played, he was on the practice squad in Miami. He's out of Grambling State. That's a pretty cool background already. But he had 5 targets, 2 for 22. He had, I believe, 6 targets in week 1. So he's involved in the offense, which I feel like, if in a deeper league, somebody has 11 targets in 2 games, that seems like it seems like he is at least somewhat involved. Now, I will say this. He was only on the field 43% of the time in this past game. But if you know, like, they went so Derrick Henry in that second half. In week 1, he was 61%. So he was much more on the field in week 1. I think he'll probably be in that 50 to 60% of the time he'll be on the field. They like a lot of 2 tight end sets, so when you think of wide receiver 3 for a team that likes 2 tight ends, you're like, well, that doesn't seem to have too much value. Again, this is a much deeper league, but I do think in a deeper league, somebody who has been involved in the offense, 11 targets in 2 weeks, and had a pretty solid game last week as well. I think he was like 4 for 62. So it wasn't like he's hasn't been involved, and it's not like he's just getting targets and not doing anything with them. He had a pretty good week. So what do you think off the radar, Chester Rodgers, wide receiver 3, Tennessee Titans?
Well, first of all, we talk a lot about a lot of off the radar guys. This guy is off the radar.
Yeah, if you had to say like him or Van Jefferson or KJ Osborne, he would be even below those guys.
Oh yeah, but and when you brought up his name, I think my exact quote was, "I literally don't know who that is." So then I looked up some stuff about him, and no, you're not throwing him in your lineup. You're not probably even picking him up, but you're gonna keep your eye on him because I think they're gonna be down quite a bit. I think teams know their main focus, and they're going to do everything they can to stop Derrick Henry. They're going to have to throw the ball. Honestly, A.J. Brown's looked, I'll be courteous and say iffy to start the season. Like you said, he's on the field a lot. I like him as a guy to keep your eye on. I'm not going to be picking him up. I don't think anybody is. And we say this a lot, but we don't want to talk about it, but if one of the main 2 wide receivers goes down, I think he's an instant pickup.
Yeah, he'll be a pickup in a lot of ways. I still think in like the 10 to 12, he might still not be, because if one of those top guys do go down, if they can rely anymore on Derrick Henry, which I'm not even sure is possible at this point, they might do that. But I think we both really like Ryan Tannehill. Would you say that? Like you think he's a pretty good quarterback? Ever since he's been in Tennessee.
Yeah, super solid. I think is what you can say. Like he's a solid quarterback. He's not one you're excited about, but
yeah, he seems like he's like like a fantasy wise, he's like a borderline top 10 guy. He was a top 10 guy last year. So I like him. I don't know. I mean, again, they're a Derrick Henry heavy offense. We talked about with Julio or AJ Brown, I think even more so. I don't want to even but you never want. But like with how much they ride Derrick Henry, if he gets banged up at all, if Derrick Henry doesn't go, I mean that offense completely changes. I do think Tannehill is a very competent quarterback, and I don't know. Again, we'll talk about the third wide receiver on this offense. Most teams cannot sustain 3 wide receivers. There's very few that can. Not only do you need a great offense, but you also need great wide receivers and you need great schemes and all these things. There needs to be so many pieces to it to be able to have 3 top, 30, 40 wide receivers. Even the best offenses in the league of all time, don't necessarily have 3 great. Usually they don't have 3 great receivers. I was thinking about the Rams, the greatest show on earth. Wasn't like it was Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, but then the third was like Hakeem. Is that what his like? It wasn't like he wasn't known, but like he obviously was much lower on the totem pole when it came, and Marshall Faulk obviously. So we look at them. You said they would be down a lot. Now I don't know if or down some of this for sure. I don't personally think Tennessee's very good. I don't think the division. I'm obviously a Texans fan, so I'm rooting for them. I was with Tyrod going down. I was starting to think this team could win the division. Am I correct? Like I thought I'm like, what to play Cleveland, the Texans that is. But Tennessee, I think, will win this division. They go like I'm just looking at week 3. They go the Colts at the Jets at the Jags. So their schedule is not bad coming up. Home to the Colts, at the Jets, at the Jags. But then they got home to the Bills on is that Monday night, I think it is. And then they play home to the Chiefs. So obviously back to back. And then they go to Indianapolis, to Los Angeles, home to the Saints. So they just have a 5-game stretch of just crazy good teams. So
well, and here's my thing is maybe not down. Maybe down was the wrong thing to say, but I don't think they're going to be blowing people out. Like, I think they're going to need to stay in. They're going to be in games, but they're never. I don't see this team blowing anybody out. So it's not like, I mean, they're still going to go to Henry. Henry's insane, but yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't see them blowing anybody out, and that's when you really see those third wide receivers, in my opinion, drop off, because the few passes they do throw when they're blowing people out, they're just going to throw to the main guys.
Yeah, and again, we'll see. I think we're early enough in the season where, thankfully Tennessee hasn't really gotten the injury bug, which a lot of teams have. But it's always people to consider. You always want to have more information for if something does happen, because sadly you don't want to say anything will happen, but like it's going to happen to some players. It's a very violent sport, and there's a lot of injuries, sometimes freak injury. There's all types of injuries, not even during the game. They're, during practice, all types of stuff. It's going to happen. So just another guy that has proven to have some worth in the offense. They use him a little bit. And, if anything changes in the offense, that it's somebody that you might be interested in adding in a semi-deep league. And if you're in a very deep league, he might even be added now. Again, it would have to be a very deep league, but he could be potentially added in one of those leagues. Maybe the last guy that we really want to talk about is, and I think the most interesting of the whole of all the people, is Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliot, Dallas Cowboys, America's team. This to me, they're America's team.
No, I know. Keep going.
This to me is so interesting. I'm really just I'm watching it play out. I know that fans are clamoring for Tony Pollard to get more time. When he touches the ball, he looks good. I feel like when I watch him, I'm like, man, that guy looks pretty good, Ezekiel Elliott. But I'm gonna let you talk about it, and then I want to give my take on it. Tony Pollard, obviously, I'll give a stat line real quick. Coming off of 13 for 109 and a touchdown, as well as 3 catches for 31 yards. So still clearly out snapped by Ezekiel Elliott. But what do you think on
significantly more effective? So I'm going to tell you what I think should happen. I think they should be in more of a timeshare. I just don't see it happening. I do not see Dallas going anywhere. Like they were kind of a timeshare this week. I don't see that. I think this is Tony Pollard's one of, if not the best game he has this year, assuming no injuries. I think they're going to continue to do what they do, and they're going to work Zeke hard. Dak looks pretty good. They're going to keep. I mean, he looked great, and I don't know. I want this to be a timeshare. I think that's the best option. I just don't see it happening. I would not be one of those guys who's out there trying to get my hands on Pollard, because I don't think you're going to get the value you want out of him. I think the Cowboys have too much invested. I think Zeke still has way too much talent for this to be even as close as it was this week. I don't believe it.
Yeah. So just in week 1, Zeke was on the field 84% of the time compared to 24% for Tony Pollard. In week 2, it really wasn't too much different. It was down from 84. You expected that. That was pretty high. Down to 71, and then 24% on Pollard is now 34%. So the thing is that when Tony Pollard was on the field, he seemed to touch the ball like every time.
Yeah,
So
that's the thing is the touches were way closer than the actual
Tony Pollard ran. I mean, he ran the ball 13 times and he had 3 catches. If I'm seeing this right, he was on the field 21 times, 21 snaps, and he touched the ball 16 of them. So obviously the touches to how often he's on the field, that's crazy. You can't sustain that. I will say this. So I do think it's still Zeke's job, and I think it's still going to be a pretty decent split, like 2-1. The one thing that people, decent amount of people know this, or talk about this, but not a whole lot of people, is you look at the one thing and you look at fantasy value and you're like, or how they look as even just how they look as running back, and you look at that and you're like, they should get more playing time, and maybe that's true with Pollard. But one thing that stands out with Zeke in week 1, I know this was a big talking point, is his pass protection is so valued.
Yeah.
That he's going to be on the field. Like when you think of Tony Pollard, you're like, yeah, he's probably like the third down back. No, it's actually Ezekiel Elliot because he is such a good pass protector. That's why you see 84% of the snaps in week 1 versus the Buccaneers. So it's not like he is a 2-down back or anything like that. This isn't a 3-down back. Now you might say he should be doing a little bit more with that. You think he's not as good a runner as Pollard. That might be fair. But the Cowboys want to throw. They have a ton of talent. Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup when he comes back. Their wide receiver core is insane. Like that 1-2 punch of Cooper and Lamb are amazing. They're going to throw, and Dak is. I mean, he looked pretty good. So
yeah.
I like Dak. He's way better than I thought he would be. So I'm a Dak fan. I'm a believer in this offense. So. If they want to throw the ball a lot, I don't think this is one of the things where you're like, well, if they're throwing a lot, you're going to put your third down back in. No, the third down back is still Zeke. He's still going to be on the field quite a bit. We saw that in Tampa especially. So that's why you see that huge number. He was on the field almost every snap in Tampa, and still 70%. I mean, if you see a 70-30 split or about that, I mean, that's pretty good for a running back 1, I think. So. You would like to see him do more with his stuff. It's not like he was terrible.
And he will. Honestly, I think he will. Like,
it's not like Zeke wasn't terrible though. He's 16 for 71 and 2 catches for 26. Like that's pretty good. He had a touchdown as well. So it's not like Zeke was awful. It's just that Tony Pollard looked like he had a little burst that maybe Zeke we haven't seen.
Nobody's ever as popular as the backup. Like the backup's always the most popular guy.
Especially when they come off of a 100-yard game too. Yeah. You're like, oh wow, like this is. But again,
this will be another thing. Like. If Zeke has 150 next week, everybody will forget Pollard exists. So
I personally do think that there's a chance that we'll see more Tony Pollard. I think after you come off of 100 yards, that's got to be something you got to at least consider it. But I still think it's Zeke's job, and it's not like they're not going to go like 50-50. It's not going to be like Chubb and Hunt, which is like a dead 50-50, sort of thing. To me, it's still probably going to be 2-1 sort of thing. And one thing I did want to mention too, which wasn't part of it, is because I think this is also interesting. Again, tight ends, because I got to mention them. I was looking at this. Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz.
5 minutes.
So, I did own Blake Jarwin in the first week. I ended up dropping him, and I think I'm okay with that decision, though I still am looking for a tight end. But Dalton Schultz had 2 for 18. Blake Jarwin 3 for 37. If you look at the snap count, Blake Jarwin was on the field for only 29 snaps compared to 45 for Schultz. So don't be a little. I mean, if you're gonna own a Cowboys tight end,
don't.
Well, maybe, but if you have to, I feel like it's got to be Schultz. He's out. He's out. He's been on the field more than Jarwin. So like in this week, he was on the field a lot more than Jarwin. So again, I know Jarwin put up a little bit better. I mean, there was not much value there to be had. But I think I'll take Schultz over Jarwin. You probably don't feel great either way with either. But if you absolutely have to own one for a week, you need a tight end. I'm looking at my league, and there's just absolutely nothing on the tight end.
There's something ironic about you not being able to find a 10.
I don't understand. Like, I'm looking at it, and there's just nothing. Like, what is going on? Like, what did I do to deserve this? It's just a complete wasteland. There's teams that have there's a pretty high amount of money in the state. There's teams that have 3 tight ends. Like I thought I was getting to a super sweaty league, and they're over here taking I don't know what they're doing. I can't find a tight end. So I'm about to look at them right now just to tell you how bad I know a lot of people don't really care about everybody's fantasy team, but
I think it's funny that the tight end guy,
the best tight end available according to like rostered is Blake Jarwin or Zach Ertz. So it's like, what the heck is that?
A strong Ertz if those are my two choices.
Like, what am I supposed to do with that? Do I take there's David Njoku down there? Maybe, I don't know. So I'm looking at like Dalton Schultz, who's 2% owned. That I might. He is. What's interesting about Schultz is he has more points than Jarwin and is on the field more just over the first 2 weeks. So it's weird that Jarwin is owned more. It's always like maybe people just draft Jarwin or whatever, and then just never. Maybe that's the reason. But why? There's no to me.
We're still early enough in the season.
Like Jarwin should not be more owned than Schultz. It's unfortunate. DeAndre Swift.
That's what I get for trying to rub Jared Goff doing something good in your face.
A good old 17-point performance from Jared Goff. Surprise, surprise, getting blown out by the Green Bay Packers.
Hey, it wouldn't be a DB2 episode if we didn't talk tight ends and Jared Goff. We had to do it. We had to.
I wasn't even, I was going to go the whole episode without bringing up Jared Goff.
I
had no intention of bringing this up about him, but here he is. I guess we could talk about, he's 21 of 28.
We don't actually need to talk about it.
Though for an amazing 187 yards.
Listen, I've acknowledged nobody's starting him. All right, we don't need to talk about him.
I'm gonna be honest.
At this point, you're just hating to hate.
And I may not cut this out, but I probably will. We'll see. That first couple drives, that throw to Hawkinson, I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah,
that was a nice throw. That was a good throw.
You're definitely cutting this.
That was a good throw. But might not see the final vid, but yeah, that was
You've got a rep to protect.
That was a pretty nice throw.
All right, so that is going to be it for this episode. If you made it this far, we very much appreciate you. Throw us a like, subscribe, comment. Really helps us out. We're going to start up something new. We decided we're still going to continue to do our 2 episodes a week, kind of longer episodes, but we're also going to do 3 quicker videos the other days of the week. So keep your eyes out for those. They're going to be very focused on one guy, probably honestly like 5-minute videos, just something quick. Maybe somebody you have your eye on, or maybe somebody you should have your eye on. So look out for those. Other than that, we appreciate you, and we'll see you at the next one.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Jared Goff's about to lose against the Green Bay Packers, so there you go. All right.
See ya.
Peace.